Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hash Rate. My guest today is Mark Basa of Subnet.ai. Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. And part of the reason why I'm doing great is because of Subnet.ai. Holy shit. You have done a fabulous thing for all of us. So for those who don't know, and I can't believe you wouldn't know this if you're in the Bittensor ecosystem, but in case you don't, Subnet.ai just launched recently. And it's basically all the information you want to know about any subnet in one place. And we're talking in particular, what I love the most is when you click through and go to a subnet, you can see who's behind it. Like you see the faces, you get the LinkedIn's. Like it's not mysterious. Oh my God, thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. And I'll tell you, this is really based on all the community's feedback. You know, we came to the ecosystem a little while ago, and because I'm the founder of PR Validator, and we're pitching to the press. And so many times that retail or the press, anyone would come to us and be like, we don't have any information on this. And so it was like kind of like Jacob and Allah's story. You know, they had their own challenges and wants and needs within AI and decentralized training and whatnot. Allah in academia and Jacob at Google. And, you know, they come together to build Bittensor. And that's sort of how this formed. You know, we're pitching to the media. We're trying to get more investors involved. And there were more questions than answers. So we're like, okay, let's talk to like 1,000 people and build something.
Oh, so, I mean, it's saved me so much time since it's launched because there've been so many times, and it's mostly like who's behind this thing, right? Like it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's really hard to sort of figure it out, right? Like if you're just sort of researching it, you're like, okay, who's this guy? And sometimes these people aren't doxed, right? Or they have some nickname like Neo, right? Where you're like, or, you know, Const is really Jacob Steves, but his hacker name is Const. Yeah. So like who, if you didn't know, like who is that guy? You don't know, right?
Exactly.
So it just, so nice. So let's, without any further ado, let's go, let's actually take a look at the site here. So this is what it looks like when you come to subnet.ai. So I guess I can just connect. So just right off the bat, I can just connect the wallet and start trading, right?
Straight away, you can connect your sub wallet, your Talisman, your Polkadot wallet. Later, we'll do all the Crucible wallets and everything. But right off the bat, what we're trying to do is say, okay, if you know about it, connect, trade straight away. But the real mission here for us is funny. This might sound a little cliche and cringe, but we're not trying to get you to buy the token. And that sounds sort of silly because it's like, well, aren't you a swap? Well, actually, the point of it is to try to get you to trust the subnet and have enough transparency so you do. So I've worked a lot in PR. I've been around in blockchain for a really long time. I was a part of one of Microsoft's first incubator programs for a Bitcoin project a really long time ago. And what you could tell was from whether it's Microsoft or VCs or whoever, if they don't trust it, the capital's just not coming in. So if you say, I've got this cool project, it does all these amazing things. There's no team, there's no emissions, transparency. I don't know anything. I'm probably not going to deploy capital. So for us, it's like if we get you to trust the subnet and everything's transparent, we feel that is more important than just having the option to swap. There's a lot of bridges out there. There's a lot of capital out there. Why doesn't it come to Bittensor? Why doesn't it come to Subnets?
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point. I think there've been sort of two big blockers. Well, there's a number of blockers, but two really big ones. One is the wallets have been too hard to use, right? So we've just had sort of the foundation wallet, or if you know your way around Talisman, which has gotten easier recently. I don't want to rip on it too much, but like maybe 4 months ago, it was a whole different thing. It was very difficult, not for us, but for the average user to use, right? Your average Ethereum or Solana jockey, it was too much for them, right? It was very much like very, very, very early Bitcoin, or like, you know, the Geth wallet in Ethereum, right? You know, before we had some decent wallets, it was like those days, right? So, but I think the wallet problem has been largely solved. I hope. I think it has been by Crucible Labs on the one hand and TAO.com on the other hand. Those are at least two very, very good stabs at it. But we still haven't solved the problem of, you know, now people can buy subnet tokens, but they don't know why they should buy subnet tokens, and that's 100%. The second half of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that's a big.
You know, the thing is that what I always say to anyone in this space who's trying to get, publicity for around what they're doing, There are many reasons, or I should say, there are many ways to buy a token, but there are few reasons. You have to create a reason through FOMO, transparency, building community, something around the reason to buy. Because, I mean, TAO's on many exchanges, so is Alpha. What is the reason for it?
I mean, not a lot. I mean, there's some alpha tokens on some exchanges.
There's some.
As far as there's like Hippias on MEXC.
Yep.
There's like 3 on MEXC, I think, and that's kind of it, though. I'm not aware of any alpha tokens being anywhere else. Are you aware of any?
No, I mean more that the accessibility for the alpha token to be swapped from TAO to alpha, to be able to access Talisman now, or to access Subwallet, or to use almost any platform to consume TAO, and then to deploy it through any way that you wish. I mean, there's enough ways now for that money to come. So if you really want to buy a Bitcoin back in the day, or if you really want to buy anything, if you're going to buy a nice car and the owner's like, I'll only accept, I don't know, gold bars, and you really want that car, you'll go and get those gold bars somehow. So I'm saying that there's enough ways now, but we need to create other reasons. And I think the reasons will be, example, Sam from Templar being cited by Anthropic. That reason now is very, very fascinating. Actually, we pitched Sam for the first time last week. We did one pitch and we got him an interview with the New York Times.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's going to result in coverage, but he has a relationship there. When anything new comes, now that guy who covers Anthropic from the New York Times knows Sam and can cover it. So now there are reasons. Now there's a big organization that's like, whoa, what did this subnet doing? What's this like obscure thing called Bittensor? I need to learn more about it. Reason.
Yeah. So this is Templar. So this is the subnet we were just discussing, and Marcus was just discussing. And this is the one that Sam runs. So I'll just go down here for a second. And oh, look, there's Sam there. So who are the people behind this subnet? Oh, that's good. This guy right here, right? Hanging. I guess that's Angela Merkel. He's hanging out with in that picture. I haven't seen this picture.
Maybe she's on the team. Bullish. Maybe she's on the team. Bullish for TAO.
Angela Merkel is working with Templar now, apparently. And Evangelist Pappas. And if you want to learn more about these people, there's their X right there. There's their LinkedIn. So and this is like finding this stuff up until now has been hard, right? So thank you, baby Jesus, and thank you, Mark, for this capability.
The most important thing that you are betting on with the subnet is the team's ability. I've worked at layer ones. I've even worked at meme tokens. You'll actually learn more from working at a meme token than a corporate layer one, by the way, because it's just way more fast paced and everything is set on fire. But in terms of the team itself, one of the things is that when you're supporting a subnet, that team is crucial. If that team has done it before, let's say, for example, a subnet 2, Disperse, Ron and Colin have already exited an AI company. So if you're going to bet on a team, I'm pretty sure that's factually correct, but I'm pretty sure they have an aviation company. Colin built robots back before robots were cool. He had a robot that went around Canada and got vandalized. It was very popular and got like billions of media impressions.
Oh, is this that hitchhiking robot?
Yes.
Was that his hitchbot? That was his. I didn't know that because I remember reading that story.
That's Colin. So that's a really incredible team to bet on. Plus what they're doing is extremely unique and there's a market demand for it. And this is the thing. That doesn't exclude if you're a high school dropout that loves to code. Those stories are some of the best because the media jump all over those. They're like, who is this guy that just, was a taxi driver that started to code? Those human stories are amazing, but you're betting on the person to do it. Can that person really become an Elon Musk, a Jeff Bezos, whatever, and grow a $1 billion enterprise on Bittensor? I think that's something that's probably overlooked when it comes to teams.
Yeah, not for me because I come from the normal, boring venture world. Like that was my life for the last 25 years before I found crypto. And when I got to crypto, everybody's like, "Yeah, who cares?" It was really weird how little due diligence there was on the crypto side of things. Now we're coming back to the world of serious people and serious projects and serious things. Oh, what do you know? Due diligence is like part of the equation again. Who would have thunk it? So what I'm looking at here, I'm seeing a bunch of logos. So these are logos of people who work with Sam.
Yeah, so it's either Sam or Evangelos have worked at these organizations. So we go to LinkedIn, we pull out, see what they've worked as engineers or whatever.
Yeah, I guess my guess is it's probably this guy.
Yeah, but I know Sam worked at the foundation with Jake
Oh yeah,
for,
that's true.
for over a year. So all really relevant experience. And I think that when you believe in the team and you think, wow, okay, this team is really doing something, it gives you that confidence that you need to say, I want to support this team, like whatever they're going to do. It doesn't matter from here because any product they build is an extension of them and their experience.
Yeah, sorry, I clicked on the LinkedIn, but the window didn't show it because it's technically in another tab. So, but I did, and I can see his LinkedIn. So
Cool.
yeah, all good there. So let's go back up to the top because this is pretty interesting. So Templar is the idea behind Templar, and this is worth going over for those who don't know, who are just coming to Bittensor for the first time. This is Subnet 3 out of 128, and what they're doing, if you're Elon Musk, you've got a thing called Colossus, which are 200,000 GPUs in one kind of mega cluster, in one place basically. And those GPUs are teaming up together to make the next generation of Grok, the next frontier model, right? So every time there's a new model that comes out, that cluster has crunched it. So, but there's like 5 people in the world who've got something like a Colossus. There's Sam Altman. There's there's Google, right? And there's Elon, and who am I forgetting? There's like probably 2 others. So, but not very many, right? But what if you could make sort of a Napsterized Colossus, right? Something that's sort of like SETI at home, but we're a bunch of computers out in the world, or something like Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin in aggregate is Earth's largest supercomputer, 500 times larger than the nearest competitor. That is a decentralized supercomputer. So what if we could make it decentralized Colossus? That's what Templar is, and everyone and Templar is pretty small right now. It's like 1/300th or so the power of Colossus itself, but it's a 70. It has produced a 70 billion parameter model, which shows that it's possible to do this. And I thought this would nobody was going to notice this for like a year, right, until it got up to some sort of scale. But just last week, the co-founder of Anthropic tweeted, he was like, hey, I've been looking around. I know that we're going to run up against this limit. There's not going to be enough GPU. There's going to be a GPU, starvation, famine that's going to happen at some point. We need to be looking ahead at how are we going to do things when we run out of GPU. Decentralized is the only way we can get bigger. And he went looking around to see who has done this at any scale. And by far, Templar, he was like, Templar is the best we found. It's amazing.
What a story. What a story. And it also puts this like Bittensor on this podium that it is starting to deserve, that you can do these things. And so I look back at this and I'm like, where are all these stories of these potential unicorns? And I look at that, I'm like, this is really fascinating because this kind of proves what Jake and Allah set out to do. And those things are remarkable. And then suddenly, and maybe like when I was talking to Sam about this, it's like, okay, if you're going to pitch this story, there are very few journalists in the world, 10, 20, that will cover that and understand that. Luckily, the person from the New York Times did know about this. So it's not the best narrative to go out with. However, there are other narratives there. The cost of training for Sam versus the cost of training for Elon Musk. There's a great story there with investors. There are other stories about, I think one of the best ones I'll highlight is that, Sam doesn't know who these miners are. And that's a really incredible thing because it's like, who is contributing to that future of distributed training and growing these models? Because normally at a corporation, you would know who that is.
Right.
So this means Anons are partaking in one of the biggest experiments ever, and they're doing it from their computers probably at home. And Google is probably going to look at this and go, whoa, this is insane. So I love those parts, and I think that's where he'll find a lot of success in who's contributing, the financial cost. Obviously, you just can't keep building more and more data centers. You can't keep building more colossals. It's impossible. So I think he's cracked something there, and I hope that story comes to fruition in the near future for him.
That's very interesting. It's not, it's also the cost. So Sam's cost is, I don't know what the cost differential is, but I imagine it's a tenth, maybe more, probably a lot more actually. Now I'm thinking about it. It's probably like, a thousandth. of the cost, right? Because the
Imagine
electricity.
electricity. Imagine all the labor and legal side and maybe some of the regulatory compliance. Maybe like there's so many things that you would have to do to spend to build what he's done, and he's done it this way. Pretty amazing.
And the employees, you're right. The recruiting, the employees, the HR, getting everybody into one place. Like they can be anywhere on earth. It doesn't matter if you're in one place or not.
Exactly.
Like that all goes away. Not to mention the electricity and the cost of the machines, the cost of the data center, right?
The
that all
insurance
just goes away. Yeah.
The insurance for that, like it's all these obscure overheads that like would really, it's kind of like this. It's like you go ahead and you try that if you're Elon Musk to build these things and you've got all that capital and you're raising all that money and you're centralizing instead of open sourcing the labor, open sourcing the intelligence. And that's what really Sam has pulled off. And I think that's where Bittensor unicorns start to get really, really interesting, because I think there's a couple of unicorn potentials in here when I look at the stories and the breakthrough. Like most businesses, 99% of businesses will fail. Most subnets will fail. That is just a part of it. Many have failed.
Yeah.
It's a part of the experimentation phase, but I think Sam is probably Templar's one to look really, really closely at.
Yeah, I've become more bullish on Templar myself, like for sure. I mean, especially in the last couple of weeks, right? The story has changed quite a bit from, this is pretty interesting. Maybe it'll go somewhere someday to, it looks like it's going somewhere right now. Right? That was sort of a surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just had lunch. Actually, Sam was here in LA.
Oh,
so
cool.
I just had lunch with them, I guess it was just coffee, but like maybe 2.5, it was like over Christmas. So 2.5, 3 weeks ago at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So we did meet up. So it's been a while since we actually met in person, but yeah, it was totally fun. So, And then the other thing that's interesting is that, you and I cannot go buy a piece of Colossus. Like there's no way for us to own, pieces of Colossus, but there is a way to own a piece of Templar, right? By contributing mining or just buying the Templar Subnet 3 token, right? There's no other like that. It's like Bittensor and the Subnets offer a way for the regular person sitting at home to participate in AI in a way that nobody else really offers them. I mean, I guess you could go buy some Tesla, right? But that's largely done. And I mean, it's probably going to keep going. Obviously, we all believe in Elon, but it's not going to. It doesn't have like 1,000x in it, probably, right? Whereas the Bittensor subnets, this is not a forward-looking statement. It's just my opinion. But I personally, Mark Jeffrey, think that some of these things have at least 1,000x in them, right? So if that's true, then I mean, this is really the only. I'm not aware of any other opportunity that's potentially even like that. With respect to participating in AI for the average person.
Yeah, and I think what happens to a lot of projects that are not inside Bittensor, I can think of one. I was a managing director of the blockchain division at this agency, and I was helping brands that were backed by Coinbase and Uniswap and Europe's fastest growing crypto payment companies, all that stuff. And I would always advise these engineers. And what would happen a lot of times was that the engineer never wanted to dilute the engineering story and didn't want to do the retail story. They didn't want to tell the layman's story about what they had built. And often they had built open source technologies or technologies that really like lowered the barrier to entry for participants, but it never took off. They could not really, it didn't take off like Bittensor in terms of the way that miners can create intelligence. Many of them were big successes. Or they turned into research labs and had more academics provide, more open source intelligence. But they could never figure out that incentive. And so if the incentive is figured out and you have all these really brilliant people who are contributing to a subnet, you just need to own that token. And that's really beautiful because that's so simple to do. Because now a lot of these projects will, for example, maybe be EVM based, or they'll be centralized as a company. And a lot of that incentive goes back to the company. But here it's a little different. On Bittensor, I assume one day you'll have thousands and thousands of companies building these open source, open intelligence marketplaces where anyone can contribute. And you can own a piece of that by owning TAO. You can own a piece of that by owning individual subnets. That itself is so brilliant. There's nothing else like it in the planet. And I can see why Barry Silbert goes on stage and says, yeah, Bittensor doesn't really have any competition. And that's kind of a thing that you don't say in business. But if you look at it deeply, right, if you tell an investor we have no competition, they go, okay, whatever.
No,
but
I know. I know the danger of saying that.
Out the door.
You don't say that to a VC ever.
No.
Even if it is true.
Even if it's true. But now you look at this, you're like, well, what even comes close? How can you build anything similar? So I think that there's something very brilliant going on. It's this crazy experiment. It either goes one way or the other. We don't know.
I actually recently, I was just going to say, I'm not going to say what it is just yet because I don't want to preempt myself. I want to preempt my announcement of an announcement. There's a little something I'm working on, and it basically involves me researching every aspect of Bittensor and sort of, summarizing my results. And one of the things I did for the first time really is I did a competitive analysis. And I actually did take a little tour on kind of everything else out there. Net, there's some shit, but basically no. Nope. There's some things that are sort of cosmetically similar, or sort of one subnet, that's outside that's similar, but that's kind of it, right? Like there's nothing really that is like Bittensor, just like there's nothing really like Bitcoin,
no,
right? Yeah, it's the same sort of idea. And I think at this point, if somebody wanted to come along and pull a Solana, like that is, make their own Bittensor and then allocate themselves, 30% of the tokens or 70% of the tokens for VCs and early contributors and like that whole bullshit, right? Yeah. Like even if they did a completely fair launch, like they're starting from scratch, right? Bittensor is now 4 years old. Yeah. So you can't really replicate the last 4 years of fair launchness. Like that's really hard to do. And totally. So I feel like Barry says a lot of times it's reach escape velocity. Mm-hmm. And even though we haven't really had a subnet yet, which is truly, truly, truly crossed the chasm, like you, I think we've got 20 that might, and I think we got 3 or 4 that are maybe close. Yeah. And I think we're going to see at least one pop this year. That's my opinion. So again, not financial advice, but that's what I think. So,
and I like that you're referring to the cross the chasm from the first pitch deck that I sent Ala and Jacob in 23. That chasm metaphor is super important. Not many people know what that means, but basically there's a point in the life cycle, the customer life cycle of a company where they go from that sort of early evangelist stage to early adopter stage, and they go through the different cycles, and they get to that point where it's like there's that one thing that tips them over. They do the Evel Knievel leap over the Grand Canyon. And what is that thing? Is it Anthropic, for example, talking about a subnet? Is it a major corporation? Is it a tweet? It could be a tweet from somebody that just makes this go parabolic. You don't know what that is, but enough things have to be there. And so when, for example, with PR Validator, we've gotten like more than 500 organic articles for Bittensor. There's so much content out there with Ken from Bitmine, with Ala, with all sorts of people, Cosmo from Pantera Capital. We've done it all. There's a lot of amazing stories. You replicate that and you have more subnets doing that. And I've always said if just like 10% of subnets did that, told their story, somebody has to take notice. You're compounding all that coverage. When you don't do it, other people tell your story for you, or they're not interested. But more so is that you're kind of like doing, you're not really pushing the narrative as far as it can go. And what I love to see about the stage that Bittensor is at now is this take on, we want to describe Bittensor in the best way that we can and our subnets and actually push the marketing, the brand, the PR. That makes it more discoverable. It makes the story more palatable. And that's where I think that the chasm starts to get smaller. The chasm right now is pretty big. The chasm closes based on how many people are surrounding, waiting for, as I said, that Evel Knievel to do that leap over that chasm. And that's based on getting all that information. I mean, you're doing an amazing job. Every time that you interview a subnet or a founder or someone from the community, you're basically telling that story over and over again, and it's getting compound. People are like, I've got to listen to Mark Jeffrey. He's got like the alpha on the alpha, interviewing the best people. That really helps the ecosystem.
Well, it's very kind of you. Thank you very much. But I've seen, I'm older, so I've seen many things sort of come out of nowhere, and then and the process seems to be something like, I remember when I first encountered Twitter, I was like, this is stupid. I'm already on Facebook. Facebook has a status, and everybody I know is already connected to me on Facebook. So why do I want to go on this fucking Twitter thing, right? And then it went from like this stupid thing that nobody wanted to be on to all of a sudden everybody was on it.
Yep.
That was around me anyway, right? And I was like, oh, I guess I better get on it.
Totally,
and it was just sort of everywhere at once out of nowhere, right? Like that's crossing the chasm.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I think we're going to see a subnet pop, and I think also the revenue will come with it. It'll be making a lot of money, and I think in my mind anyway, the subnet crosses the chasm when the subnet token is worth more than $1 billion. That's when that's sort of in my mind the demarcation. So I think that's going to happen. So let's get back to your product for a little bit because I want to talk a little bit more about this.
Sure.
So right now I'm showing this is Targon, and you can see everybody in Targon who's sort of at the exec level is represented here on this page. LinkedIn's, X's. It's awesome, dude. This is great. What else? What else is going on here in your website? Is there anything else we should be highlighting?
So yeah, we scrape a lot of the data that's available. We don't have, like for example, Macrocosmos have an enormous team. We can't put everybody there, but we limit it to say like 6 people per subnet. We scrape a roadmap. Some things are in the docs, some things are on Twitter, LinkedIn. We just do our best to put a roadmap there. We try. Just recently, we've updated the emissions in the treasury, and that's something that we can also go through as well.
Ah, yes.
Because when we first did it, so for full transparency, we use the TAOStats API, which is incredible. Mog and Doug are sensational, that customer support. And I also like that Subnet.ai is a use case of TAOStats, like what you can build off an Explorer. And I think that if Mog is ever going to sell TAOStats one day or grow it to a $100 billion company, it's cool to see that this is one of the first use cases for retail. That what you can do with that API. Because a lot of APIs, they just feed stuff, but what can you really do with it? And so we looked at this and said, TAOStats is amazing, but there's stuff in there that I get asked about from the media or VCs. And I'm like, well, instead of just like lines of, wallet addresses and emission schedules or whatever, put it into something that's a bit more readable. So we just updated the treasury, and this treasury section is about what's happened from DTAO. Previously, it was like all emissions, but it was not clear. It was not accurate because it was like all emissions. And then there's a lot of confusion from our side when we take the API data. I mean, miner share, validator share, miner burn. So now we've talked with Doug, and we hope this is the most accurate. And this is really going to show you what I believe is the most valuable, which is Bittensor as a self-funding Y Combinator, because people miss that part. You have to go to Y Combinator and apply, then they tell you to fuck off because something, and then you become like an Airbnb, which is like, all these emails of getting rejected, then you end up becoming $1 billion company. Well, now you don't have to go through that process. Bittensor, if you've got a good idea, great incentive mechanism, you can solve a problem, you can actually do this yourself. You don't need the VCs who say no to all these things. That doesn't fit their portfolio. That's what this is for me, that teams were able to create an incentive mechanism, get miners to contribute, the validator support of the network, and the breakdown of how much, in layman's terms, how much did the protocol pay a subnet to build what they have built today.
That is actually a giant point, and I'm really glad. I don't know why I forgot about this, but like, oh my God, I love the treasury section too. This is in fact the thing I love the most, even more so than the team. Although I love that as well, right? So here, this is pretty interesting. So this particular subnet, so this is Macrocosmos IOTA, so Subnet 9. Okay, I just couldn't remember the number. So this is their treasury, and what we're looking at here, because they've been around a long time. So this is one of the older subnets, right? So as the subnet operates, the Bittensor blockchain emits tokens, which are then sold and converted into subnet tokens, but expressed here in terms of tau. So 736,000 Subnet 9 alpha tokens have been emitted, which equals 39.17 thousand tau at prices right now, which is 11 million, more or less, right? Yeah. So the subnet has been given by the blockchain $11 million, and when you say self-funding Y Combinator, that's what you mean. Just like
that's what
Bitcoin,
I mean.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is huge. It's like a 10 million investment and there's no equity. It's just free.
And
Here you go.
it's so incredible. The thing is that we are doing in about a week's time, maybe less, is that because some of these subnets are pre-DTAO, we will also show the TAO emissions. So right now, this is alpha emissions only. It was TAO and alpha. Then we had to split it because this is more complex than it looks, because you have to go by the registration date. The other thing you have to do as well is, which we'll work on, is showing the subnet slot history. So one of the big things is subnets have changed hands many times, which means that different teams got different emissions at different dates. They also paid different amounts, which also, some teams paid $1 million for their subnet slot. Others paid far less, depending on, the time that they bought it. So we want to break this down so you understand how well funded the team is. What did they accomplish with this? One of the biggest things that I saw, how do I describe him? A VC with a $1 billion company. And we were talking, and he's like, I don't understand how these teams get funded and what they've built for it. And I also cannot, someone from who got VC funding from A16 actually said to me, another guy said, how do I compare those teams with the centralized competitors, the guys from Silicon Valley that are raising all this money? We figured out how to do it using different APIs on different, major websites. So soon you'll be able to come to the treasury and say, this subnet got 10 million, and here's what they're building, and here's their market cap, and here's their competitor, and what they got at their date and what they built. So then you can make better decisions based on what the market has already provided and what VCs are interested in. Because I feel this, that if you were to introduce a subnet and what it's doing to its centralized player and offer that to VCs, and they're like, wow, these are like liquid tokens. I can just like click a wallet and buy this, and I didn't have to go through all that shit I did with the centralized player. Wow. And that's the goal for this, what we want to do. We want to help teams better sell what they've got, create a brand and hype around, as I said, the self-funding Y Combinator, and then go to centralized players who go, yeah, we want to support. Because a lot of these big VCs, they don't just provide capital. The right ones can provide a lot of commercial strategy. They can pick up the phone and call all these enterprises and be like, you got to see what is happening on, Subnet 9 or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and just to finish the thought here, so, the subnet got 11 million, but the miners who participated and helped build the subnet, right? The sort of temp workers all over the world are working 24/7. We don't know who they are. Doesn't matter, because all we care about is that they contributed and that their contribution is measurable and verifiable. Those people got $25 million worth of TAO and subnet tokens. And the validators who helped sort of, check the work of the miners, they also got 25 million, right? So there's a lot of, so that's $50 million worth of work. So even though the subnet collected 11 million, it got $50 million worth of work, right?
It's incredible, because the narrative mostly is that AI is going to take jobs. Yes, that is true. It's going to take a lot, but I think there's new economies being made, and we can't see that future as much. Like the average person probably can't see that. How would I ever be able to contribute anything? If you take the consulting industry, medical field, whatever it is, there's some really smart people out there, and for their intelligence, they can get rewarded from their home, in bed with their laptop. They don't have to have the big offices. Like it actually changes all the mega cities and skyscrapers that you ever see. You think, wow, that whole world may one day, that skyscraper might be a data center, or maybe it's gone and we're all running these things at home. And Allah said on this, we did some PR. We got Allah and the Macrocosmos guys on this Amazon Prime documentary, this small series that's coming out. It's not live yet. But Allah said something, and he's like, you'll have so much more time. When you start using AI and you start contributing and training, you'll have so much more time for the things that you want to do. And I think that's a really big part of this. Why would you do the 9 to 5, which I think is totally outdated, when you could do 9 to 10? You're really good at your job.
Yeah.
And you can contribute. That's beautiful, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and on the flip side too, if you're running a company, right, you're going to hire dead weight, and you're going to have people that are unfireable for one reason or another, right? And you want to fire them, but you can't. And firing people is hard, right? It just is, right? Like even if you can fire them, right? So
Yep.
In Bittensor, going back to the miners and the validators, but the miners in particular, because they're sort of the ones producing the product, right? The digital commodity that this subnet is then selling. There's no dead weight. Only the best out of the miners get paid anything, right? Just like in Ridges, it's a winner take all. Like all the miners get nothing except for the one that produced the thing that was specified by the subnet, right? So that is the harshest of all the subnets, right? There's only one survivor. It's like Highlander, right? With every block, there could be only one, and there is only one, right? I mean, Bitcoin works the same way.
Yep.
So it's incredibly efficient with how it pays out. So not only is it a great deal for the person sort of anywhere in the world that doesn't want to be a 9-to-5er and just wants to freelance it, and for some of these people, the pots can be actually quite big, right? Like I know in Ridges, it's like 50K to 100K you can make a day if you're the best one, right? So if you're at Facebook being paid $1 million a year, which some of these AI engineers are,
yep.
you can make that in like 2 weeks in Bittensor, right?
And that's so crazy that narrative has not yet caught on. Like not enough engineers in the world really know that. And that's part of the chasm as well that I talked about in 23 was that when some of these big engineers, Jake or Allah mentioned it to me actually, that are paid like $1 million in Silicon Valley, when they find that out, like why would you go and work for these mega corporations? Maybe you want the brand equity of working for Google. I totally understand that. And for Facebook, and there's other benefits there in the network. But when you're that skilled and you're so good at what you can do, just contribute from your laptop. That for me is like second to none.
Exactly. It's absolutely, once they figure this out, that is going to be the hook. I totally agree with you. So, and they just don't know. Well, part of the reason why is because the AI people, they don't like crypto. They've seen the meme coin, right? They've seen the meme coin bullshit, and it just feels gooey and icky and bad, right? Like they're like, I'm an AI researcher. I'm smart. I don't play with the little coins and the dog coins and the bullshit,
it's
right?
Really
That's what
true.
they think, right? So there's a little bit of a, there's a mental chasm that they have to cross, or we have to get them over, right? Which we're working on, but yeah, that's part of it.
Before we continue, I actually want to highlight that a bit more because you mentioned something there about the token and subnets and Bittensor and whatnot. So there's two parts. Whenever we pitch to the press, we almost never pitch the word Bittensor or subnet. We never pitch TAO or really anything to do with blockchain. And we use other words like open source training, open source intelligence, incentivized intelligence, something else that's more palatable, that's not too obscure. And those pitches have the best success rate. I see a lot of subnets who so they build a company and they pitch their subnet as the thing that should be the investment vehicle. The subnet itself, you could say, is not like the company is the investment vehicle, and the subnet drives that to bring value. But really, if I'm an investor, if you're going to pitch your company, your subnet, miner emissions, how valid it is, actually that stuff there is too diluting in the brand. If we did the same thing with the press, if we mention any more than 2 brands, we'll never get a response. And that's because it's too confusing and I have to do too much deep diving and understanding and learning these things where I actually just want the human story. You were a cab driver and you started coding and you built this thing. I don't really care what Bittensor is, but I want to understand what drove you to build it and how you actually do it. Oh, you use open source tech so people around the world can contribute. Boom, there's your story. So yesterday I was actually talking to a guy, one of the top people in M&A. He's personally done more than 5 billion in acquisitions, and I was pitching him something around Bittensor. And when I pitched it to him, I rarely used the word Bittensor. I was talking about this other layer that sits on top that can basically, we'll say tokenize AI for now. But what was really good about it was he goes, this was one of the best pitches I've ever received. He didn't go too deep into the tech. He asked about Bittensor and subnets and how it worked. And I talked about it. And he said, why Bittensor? And I actually, reframe and say, because of the way that it works with open source intelligence, we didn't have to go too deep. So now when the pitch deck and materials go out to him, there's stuff for him to learn about, subnets, but the guys who are going to deploy, let's hope 40, 50 million in capital, I don't want to show them validator share, miner share, and things like that. I'm going to leave that out because that's another layer for people to learn. And that's why this is great that we have it on Subnet.ai, but for a subnet to push their subnet and all the mechanics on top of the brand they're building, that's where I think that the brand can get diluted.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, but eventually they're going to figure out that this is a blockchain and this is a subnet.
They will,
right? And at that point, aren't they going to feel tricked if
no,
you haven't told them?
No, because
wait a minute, this is crypto. Okay, and you were trying to hide that from me. Like, there's none of that.
An altcoin, no, because I think that what the play is for here is that there's an underlying technology. The underlying technology powers everything. But myself as a company that's building anything, take any of these subnets, that's the main thing. My company produces something that people want to buy. There's a huge demand for it. And the reason I'm more competitive is because I use this open source marketplace. Okay, what's the marketplace you use? Sure, talk about Bittensor, talk about how miners are rewarded. But my revenue model typically, I don't think will be in TAO, will be in alpha. I'm going to charge US dollars for all my services. And maybe miners get paid from the protocol and I pay them back through however my business is structured. But I think that going out there first and saying I have a subnet and there's miners and there's validators, etc., then that is the challenge that we've seen. So the press typically reject or ignore those pitches. They don't work as well as when we say, like for example, Sam with Templar. Bittensor wasn't used in that pitch to get the New York Times. Neither was subnet. Neither was the word subnet.
So how did you pitch it? So you basically just said, this guy's making decentralized Colossus, some version of that is pretty
basically
much it?
Said, yeah, Jack from Anthropic said all these things. And by the way, this is the guy that was cited. He's built this open source thing, blah, blah, blah. It uses decentralized, blah, blah, blah. No token, no subnet, nothing.
Got it.
Get in the door first is what I mean. Get in the door before you start
you got to get in the door. You got to get
now.
Yeah, the elevator pitch. Don't mention that shit in the elevator pitch. Just wait till later. So
exactly.
Okay, that makes total sense to me. Actually, weirdly, I've been feeling that a lot about just explaining Bittensor in like the movie, right? The movie that came out like 2 months ago, the Incentive Layer. Really great movie. But I think where it doesn't work as much for me is that there wasn't almost anything about what the subnets were doing, right? It was all about the mechanism of the incentive layer, right? It's like sort of talking about how the car engine, it's like, I'm going to do a car documentary, but it's all about how the engine works. Like we never actually see the car go.
Yeah.
We don't see the car running down the road, right? Like it's sort of what it felt like to me, which is the point, right? So, so I try to,
Yeah, no, I understand. I think that to get people to get more into Bittensor, I think we have to talk about subnets maybe not more as companies, but about what they're achieving with this open source way of building businesses. And if we jump over those layers, when the VC asks about how does the miner get rewarded, you can of course talk about the blockchain and the token. That part there is really smart and brilliant. And when you talk about Jacob and Allah who built this and their backgrounds, it only gives it builds more brand equity behind that story. But getting back to the treasury side, if you scroll down a little, we have this other section where we are trying to build out to further help subnets understand where particular cold keys and exchange transfers are. This is not 100% because we only track about 3 transfers, which means that we don't track an individual TAO. If that TAO came from the cold key and went to many wallets and ended up at an exchange, it doesn't mean that the subnet sold and dumped on an exchange. It's not what it means at all. But it's very, very difficult. Sometimes those exchanges at the end are not completely correlated with the subnet itself. But in doing research to old subnets and some current subnets, we found things from the API where some subnets have sold tons and tons and tons of TAO and have produced very little for it, or they've swapped TAO for alpha and vice versa. And so what we want to do historically, if there's a net UED, a subnet slot, right now TAOStats have this really good thing where you can see subnet history when different subnets changed hands. We
Yeah.
will build out a profile for every single subnet that ever existed. So the team for this subnet at different stages, what that team bought or sold. That recent subnet that was rugged is a great example in that
Yes.
subnet slot to show who that team was, how much they sold, where is the exchange, is something pending. Because I think one of the things is that if you go and you look up subnet history now, there's a lot of stuff on Google. And if a new team takes over that subnet, shit, I mean, are you going to take over a subnet slot that was rugged and then just forget about all the stuff that was there? That's going to be tricky for that subnet to rebuild brand equity and refresh that history. But we want to try to go, here's all the team, here's what happened at different stages. This subnet failed, this subnet failed, this was a success, they made some money, and so on.
Yeah, something that's just like a house, right? So if like the last person to live in a house was a criminal, and then you bought the house, like it shouldn't really reflect on you. You just bought the criminal's house, but it's just that it's not that the house isn't bad. Nothing wrong with the house, right? So yeah,
totally.
So, but I think actually there was somebody. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was somebody I spoke to recently, and I was sort of up here in the treasury section on your site.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, looks like you made, I'm just going to say 11 million because that's what it says here. And that person was like, no, that's totally not true. We've made like 2 million. And because there was somebody that owned their subnet before them, right? And they're like, oh, that doesn't. So this number here, is it reflecting this 11 million? Is this reflecting if this subnet had been owned maybe twice previously? It's a pre-owned subnet. It's a used subnet, if you will. Does this number now reflect it, or is it, or not?
Well, this isn't. Are you on IOTA right now?
Yeah, I'm on IOTA, so that's that doesn't.
What's a recent subnet that I might have live? If you go to a subnet that's maybe more recent, maybe a month or two old, we might have the data for it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that would be.
But that problem you're talking about is exactly what we're trying to fix. Click on View All Subnet.
Okay, so it's still a problem. I just want to clarify. It's still a problem right now, which is what I thought. And just what you've done already is miraculous. And I know that's a really hard problem to solve. So and thank God you're looking into it.
If you click on Explore Subnets or View All Subnets, that's fine. And click the drop down Advanced Filtering on the top right. If you go and you change the max, actually no, if you click on tower emissions at the top of that column, if you go lower with your mouse, where it says tower emissions in the column, if you click on tower emissions.
Okay, this one right here. Yeah.
Click it. So now it's going to filter from the top emissions. Click it again, it'll show the bottom emissions. And I just want to see, so some of these newer ones that are registered, I think I believe now what the API is showing is that the history of that subnet. I don't think that treasury section is showing the total amount. I don't believe so. Not with this since detail. But I'll double check. But again, this is what the trickiest part is filtering that. So there are some subnets now that have made substantial amounts because they were prior to detail, and they also made a lot amount after detail. So we're going to split that up so you see what the schedule has been like. Later, you'll be able to see what the validators earn in a more comprehensive level, the miners earn. And one of the biggest things that we're working on right now, which is mostly done, is the subnet cold key wallet addresses, for example, in correlation with the miners. So there was a big thing a while ago with like subnets mining their own subnet. Is it good? Is it bad? And there can be subnets there that really, really exploited that and then didn't have that much to show. But we've more or less tracked and consolidated how that actually works. So if a subnet miner share is huge and there was like a handful of miners ever, that was probably centralized, and that subnet created an incentive mechanism to boot out other miners. And one subnet that we saw, and we don't know if it's true or not, was selling like millions of dollars every month on an exchange, and that cold key address from that miner actually correlated. So that changes the ballgame because now from Silicon Valley how many of these guys go out and buy Ferraris and all these things, and they come back 5 years later and they're like, oh, we're going to IPO. Where did the money go? You have to do all these audits. Now with things like TAOStats and blockchain, that's all transparent. So we want to also help to build that trust layer where if you want to invest in a subnet, oh, wait a second, you made $100 million and you've never done any brand marketing, you don't even have a decent team. Where's that money right now? Are you just sitting on Tao earning rewards? That's probably not a team that I would want to support.
That's interesting. It's like VC due diligence, right? The due diligence you would do as a VC is now available to everyone, and it's on chain.
Yep.
And it's there. It just hasn't been sort of correlated and exposed in a really clean UI. And that's what you're going to do.
Exactly.
So you're going to, that's amazing. That's big.
It's big. It's really
great.
complicated. TAOStats, as I said, the API is amazing, but it's complicated because we don't want to get it wrong. Because we partially got it wrong when we went live because of how we were taking data and the labels we put on it. And, we had to be like, fuck, how do we actually fix that? Because we're getting this raw data, but we're not calculating it properly because it might say you've made all this money, but there's miner burn and there's validator share and all these things. But much later, you'll be able to, I think what we're also planning to do is more on the whales that own the share of the alpha and how much of a stake does a whale own? Where are they delegating? How much are they made? Are they in profit or loss? But also, if I know a massive whale or a mining team owns half the supply, just like back in the day when you were buying shitcoins and you saw the tokenomics and it was in 2 wallets, you're like, whoa, okay. But now we're going to track that, display it, and say, well, that whale first accumulated. They've sent it to all these wallets. So now 20% of the supply is owned by this much, and here's the volatility or the risk score of that subnet if you invest. If that whale dumps, forget it. Most of the liquidity is pulled. That will help, I think, really to help funds like yours, like Stillcore, to make those decisions to support teams. That's the goal anyway.
This is massively helpful for that. I can tell you already, I've been using it like crazy while thinking about investments. So yes, for sure. And the more you add in the due diligence bits, even better. Yep. Right. So, I can tell you, I've gone and looked at the people, I feel very confident about the people that we've invested in to date. But there's some other people, there's some other subnets that I don't know as much about, right? So it would be extremely helpful to sort of, know for sure all these things like that you were just describing. So yeah, the venture due diligence on chain, that's amazing, and that's kind of a new concept. That's a new thing on Earth. That's never existed before.
No, I think that when because of the token itself, there's a lot of hype around teams. So a team will launch, they'll go to an industry, and then they'll say, "Oh, we're going to compete with Amazon." I'm like, there is no way this team is ever going to compete with Amazon, let alone get in front of their competitors. How are you going to take the market share of Jeff Bezos? That's not a thing. Be more realistic. And when we see those kinds of, don't get me wrong, I love the ambitious projects, but when we see those kinds of projects or subnets launch, there are other elements that you should know about those things because sometimes it's way too early stage and that team has to burn and fail multiple times and come back way more experienced. So how much of your capital do you want to deploy to that experiment? And I know it's great that you can support the teams, but I think what was missing so many times when we read the team story, I was like, okay, great industry, but who is your deal maker? There's a lot of great engineers, but I don't see the deal maker that's going to close any deals. Are you going after enterprise sales? Are you going after anything? But your deal maker, has never made a deal. And I've been in organizations before where the deal makers were great at, buying and selling banks, but they didn't understand or didn't even interact with a hot wallet. So now you're at a blockchain and now you don't know what a MetaMask is, but you're going to sell this and make millions of dollars? I don't think so. So there's that correlation that we want to bring that raw data into Subnet.ai. So you go, well, this team is so cracked. They're in this industry. Here's the market size. I can do my due diligence. It's all on chain. It's all verified. And I can make a decision to support that team.
Yeah, no, you've done a really, really great job here. So we're coming up on the hour. So I want to make sure let's give you a chance to plug whatever you want to plug. What are your websites? What are your Twitter handles? What are your books?
Yeah,
Go for it. Now's the time.
Yeah, no, Subnet.ai, Subnet.ai is the main way. There are many different ways to support it. We want as much feedback as we can get. The best way to support it would be to connect your wallet to take your Tao and support a team by swapping to Alpha. You can now delegate your alpha to 6 different or 7 different validators on the platform. You can send TAO on the platform. Share the URLs of all the teams that you love. Share them all over Twitter. Get as many people to use it as possible. We've got a few partnerships underway where we hope to be the default link for every profile ever, so people can interact. And if you're feeling very generous, you can of course always donate to the platform. There's a little on the top right-hand side. You can donate anything that you feel to help this work. We're going to push this as hard as we can for the next 12 months. And just try and build out as many things as possible and try and figure out what that feature is or what that value prop is, particularly to investors like yourself. So they go, this is my default research tool, and we'll see how valuable that becomes.
We've done a magnificent job. Subnet.ai is the website. I love it. So should you. Go use it. I guess that's it. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.